Hey guys, welcome back. It's nice to see you again. Well, I can't really see you, but you can hear me, and that's what matters, okay? That's what matters. You came back, you're tuning back in, so thank you for being here. So before we dive in tonight, I just wanted to take a quick moment to reflect. Dark Files, The Bone Breaker, The Survival of Thad Phillips was released on Monday, and I've heard from so many of you, including parents, about how deeply this one affected you. I'll be honest, that story has stayed with me too, and I've been thinking a lot about how to carry that kind of pain with the care that it deserves. If there were moments that I didn't sound as sympathetic as I should have, that's something I want to grow from, because these stories aren't just stories, they're real, and they matter. And if you notice the infamous static or background hum in that episode or any other, don't worry, I did too, and I've got some new equipment on the way to help smooth everything out. I'm trying to level up behind the scenes, and I truly appreciate you sticking with me while I get this all sorted out. Truly, starting from the ground, and I'm trying to build it up. So, thank you for being here. And if there's a case that you ever want to hear, something dark, something unsolved, or a little off the grid, send it in. I love receiving messages, and I read every single one of them. And the ones that you bring me are the ones that always hit the deepest, because I love listener requests, and I turn those into those little dark files that I drop randomly on Mondays. All right, candle lit, mic on, let's hit the cliffside. A girl goes missing, the town whispers, the forest keeps its secrets, and somewhere on a jagged cliff locals call the Devil's Teeth, a dog trots home with a human arm. Welcome back to Glow in the Dark. I'm Destiny, and tonight's case takes us back to 1972, back to a small New Jersey town, back to a forest cliff with a name sharp enough to bleed. This is a story about fear, not just about what happened, but about what people needed to believe happened, about a teenage girl who vanished, and how a town full of secrets turned her into something she never was. This is the case of Jeanette DePalma. It's August 7th, 1972, a Monday afternoon in the New Jersey suburbs. Sunny, sticky, almost unnervingly still. 16-year-old Jeanette DePalma was supposed to be on her way to a friend's house. She left her family's home in Springfield with just her purse, a pair of flip-flops, and plans to take the train to Summit, but she never made it. When her friend called Florence DePalma later that evening, confused about why Jeanette hadn't shown up, that's when the panic began. Florence and Sal, Jeanette's parents, called the Springfield police, but they were told the same line that so many families in the 70s were given. She's probably just a runaway. No urgency, no search party, just wait and see. But Florence DePalma knew her daughter. Jeanette was independent, yes, but she was also thoughtful, dependable, and close to her family. She wasn't the type to just vanish without a trace. The DePalmas begged for help, but the police wouldn't officially take action until 24 hours had passed. And for anyone who knows anything about criminal investigation, those 48 hours are crucial. But the Springfield PD? They cut that in half. While the clock ticked and the sun rose and fell again, Jeanette remained missing. And her parents, terrified and desperate, they had no time to waste. They began canvassing the area themselves, searching ditches, trails, creek beds, and forest paths near the quarry just behind their neighborhood. But they had no idea that the place they feared the most, those ragged bluffs that towered over the Watchung Mountains, would eventually be where they found her. But by then, it would be far too late. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but there's crickets outside. Yeah. If y'all can hear this, my mic is fire. Just kidding. But I live in an apartment and I'm in my room. Yeah, there's crickets outside. So if you hear that, so sorry. September 19th, 1972. It had been nearly 6 weeks since Jeanette vanished, and life in Springfield had slumped into that hazy state between grief and denial. Then, around 11 a.m. that morning, a woman living at the Baltusrol Garden Apartments let her dog out the back door that morning. It's just a routine thing. And if you live in an apartment or you have lived in an apartment, you know what I'm talking about. I see people let their dogs out every morning. This is just normal routine. Except this time, the dog darted straight into the woods behind the property, towards the old quarry. A short while later, that same dog returned, carrying something in its mouth. At first, the woman didn't even register what it was, but then the dog dropped it on the grass. A human arm. The apartment superintendent came outside just moments later and found it, still fleshy, badly decomposed, and fingernails visible. Officer Don Schwartz responded to the call, and like anyone would, he thought it was a prank. "This woman is always complaining about those rowdy teens," he said. "I figured it was just a mannequin arm." It wasn't. He got closer. He saw the skin and the nails. No question. This was real. He took several photos and then radioed for backup. The woman swore it couldn't have been her dog. He was still a puppy. And then Schwartz saw the dog himself, and he agreed. There is no way it had that kind of strength to drag a human limb. So the officers began going door to door, asking if anyone else had let a dog out that morning. Eventually they found her. A tenant who owned a full-grown Dalmatian. She had let him out around 9 a.m., right before the arm appeared in the yard. Investigators concluded that this dog must have found the arm somewhere in the woods behind the apartment and brought it home. So they packed the arm. Yes, packed it into a cardboard box and returned it to the station. I thought they had like special baggies for this stuff. I get it. The year is, a little further back, but I still thought, chain of custody, there's bags. But, I guess nothing like tossing a human limb into a moving box to kick off your Tuesday, right? But something in their gut told them this might be Jeanette DePalma, and they weren't wrong. Later that afternoon, the Springfield police broke into small search teams and headed into the woods behind the apartments. They focused on the Hood Eye Quarry, a steep, rocky excavation site that's just beyond the tree line. This quarry had been carved out to mine greenockite, a cadmium-rich mineral, and was popular with local teens, occasionally off-duty cops, who used it for target practice. Around 6 p.m., 7 hours after the arm was found, Officer Dan Schwartz and a fellow officer were searching an old bed of gravel prepped for the further construction of Interstate 78. And that's when they found the other part of the arm, the upper portion. It confirmed one terrifying truth. The rest of the body had to be nearby. So they kept climbing, up the rocky embankment, up the twisted switchbacks and the thorn bush, until they reached the top of the jagged bluff. Locals called it the Devil's Teeth, because the cliff jutted upward into 3 sharp points, triangular and eroded, almost like a monster's grim carved from stone. And just a few feet from the edge, they found her, face down and fully clothed in a blue t-shirt and tan pants. Her flip-flops and her purse were nearby, half covered in leaves. No ID, no obvious wounds, and no blood. Her body was severely decomposed. It had been 6 weeks. This wasn't just time breaking down the body. The salt rock absorbs and radiates heat, which can speed up decomposition by creating kind of a slow, constant warmth, especially during New Jersey's late summer sun. Salt runoff from the quarry dries soft tissue faster, making it harder to read surface wounds. And that's not including the insects. Blowflies are usually first. They lay eggs in any openings, mouth, eyes, wounds, and their larvae can break down tissue in hours. So if there were any signs of foul play, nature may have erased it before anyone had the chance to see it. But still, there were no gunshot wounds, no broken bones, no visible trauma, nothing that screamed murder, and yet everything about the scene felt unnatural. But then came the part that would haunt this case forever: the sticks. Officer Don Schwartz claimed that over Jeanette's head there were 2 branches, crossed like a crucifix, and around her skull, small stones placed in a semicircle, like a halo. Another officer, Howard Thompson, would later describe the arrangement as witchcraft, though notably, he never claimed what exactly made it so. Some press reporters exaggerated even further, claiming that there were logs arranged in a coffin shape, but there's no photographic evidence. And other officers, including Ed Kish, insisted that there was nothing unusual. She was found in the woods, he said. There were sticks and rocks everywhere. And even Schwartz, years later, told Weird NJ that he didn't remember any coffin shape at all. So, was it real? Or was it fear? Interpretation? We'll never know for sure. But once the detectives arrived, everything changed. Random, but I can't help but think, in one episode there was thunder, and now I have crickets. It's like I have my own little ambiance going on in my little apartment. Kind of weird, kind of cool. It's kind of fitting with this one because we're outside in a quarry. Well, we aren't, but the story is, It's kind of fitting. I don't know. I don't know about you. Slightly annoying, slightly fitting. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean. But still, the police sent key evidence to the FBI for testing: her clothing, hair samples, soil, and leaves. They wanted to know if someone had doused her in chemicals, if there were signs of ritual activity, or maybe drugs and DNA. The FBI's findings? Inconclusive. Her body had showed no traces of chemical preservatives, and there were no drugs detected in the remaining tissues, and there was no semen, which didn't mean she hadn't been assaulted. It just means that, if she had, it didn't survive the decomposition. The only possible clue? Her purse. It had Jeanette's school ID, some receipts, and a small Bible. But there was nothing that led to a killer. Meanwhile, the media? They were having a field day. Within 24 hours of Jeanette's body being found, the press started running headlines about possible satanic activity. And that's the moment when everything went off the rails. Suddenly, Jeanette's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a symbol. And not of her life, but of everything the adults in the town were afraid of. Jeanette's body was recovered and sent to the Union County Medical Examiner's office for autopsy. The condition was rough. So rough, in fact, that Dr. Joseph Viesberry, who performed the autopsy, said he couldn't determine a cause of death. The soft tissue was gone. Her internal organs were decomposed. There was no skull fracture, no stab wounds, and no bullet holes. Her hyoid bone, often fractured in strangulation, was intact. Toxology? It couldn't be done. Too degraded. She had been dead for over a month. There had been storms, intense summer heat, and the insects had done their job. No cause, no manner, no way to prove, on paper, if this was even a homicide. One local pastor claimed that he had spoken with half a dozen or more young people who had confessed to being part of devil worship rituals. He didn't name them. He didn't explain how he found them. He didn't cite a single piece of evidence. Just straight up fear-mongering in preacher voice. Like shouty horror movie monologue vibes, no notes. And he wasn't the only one. Another reverend, Joseph Donchez of the First Presbyterian Church, told a reporter that he believed there were 80 to 90 young Satanists in Vineland alone. 80 to 90. This reverend said something like 80 to 90 Satanists lived in a town. Like, I'm sorry, but what? Where are you getting your facts? Like, who are you to even say that? Are you guessing gumballs in a jar at the church carnival? Or is that your lucky bingo number? Maybe that's what it is. No, I'm sorry. Maybe you're just tossing out numbers so it sounds holy, so that way you can call it a prophecy. Ugh. I can't stand people. 80 to 90. But no one asked him for proof. Instead, the newspapers ran with it. One outlet even interviewed members of the Church of Satan to get their take on Jeanette's death. Alright, so how about next week we just ask Dracula his thoughts on blood types? Yeah? Sound good? Since we don't need proof of anything? It got so ridiculous that even police began pushing back. Some detectives even publicly stated that they didn't believe the scene was occult-related at all. But by then, the narrative had already taken hold. And of course, someone leaked a detail about the cross over her head, which meant one thing. The Satanic Panic was officially here, years before it would sweep the rest of the country in the 80s. And now, every person with a weird neighbor, every mom who didn't like their daughter's record collection, every teacher who saw a pentagram doodled in a notebook was calling the police. God, I'm glad I didn't live there in the 70s. I definitely would have got the cops called on me or gotten arrested in school. My doodles were outlandish, okay? Outlandish. The cops tried. They really did. They followed up on tips. They interviewed friends and classmates. They questioned a man nicknamed Red Kira who'd been camping near the quarry. Nothing stuck. Even the FBI analysis was a dead end. But the town? It didn't care. They were too busy turning Jeanette into something she wasn't. The same girl they ignored while she was missing suddenly became the hippie stereotype the second her body was found. They blamed her for hitchhiking. They blamed her for being curious about spirituality. They blamed her for being murdered. I guess it's easier to crucify a girl than investigate her death. And then the rumor started. One of the earliest, that Jeanette had been going to meet a boy named Tommy the day she vanished. No last name, no confirmation, just a rumor. Because of course, it couldn't just be a walk or a friend. It had to be a boy, always. They called her naive, rebellious, and reckless, even though her friends said otherwise. She wasn't that religious, one of them said. She wasn't into that stuff. But the Reverend? He told the paper she died because she was too religious. He claimed she encountered occultists while hitchhiking and tried to convert them, and they killed her. Because apparently, Satanists now live in the woods and hate unsolicited Jesus speeches. Didn't know that, Reverend. Did y'all know that? Maybe we should just de-reverend him, whatever it's called, to make him not a reverend, because this guy sure does like stirring the pot. I mean, maybe he just likes his little 15 minutes of fame because he keeps going back to these reporters. And I'm getting really tired of this reverend. And of course, the town ate it up. And once the Satanic Panic had taken hold, the townspeople started finding all kinds of things. And I'm using air quotes on the word finding. Yeah, air quotes here. Finding things. Dead pigeons, broken candles, bowls supposedly filled with blood. Honestly, it's like they were trying to win a scavenger hunt or something. Who can find the most eerie stuff? Who wins the Satanic Panic bingo? Who will it be? But none of it was ever connected to Jeanette. None of it led to a suspect, and none of it helped. And then there was Florence, Jeanette's mother. She was the one who said a witch might have lured Jeanette up that cliff, that she feared some spiritual evil had reached her daughter. And then when Jeanette was found, Florence was terrified. She wasn't just afraid of a witch's intentions. She feared Jeanette might come back changed. It's been more than 50 years. Jeanette's case has never been solved. No one was ever charged. No one ever confessed. The autopsy still says undetermined. And yet, what we do know is this. The first story that was told about her life, her character, and her death wasn't told by those who loved her. It was told by the people who needed her story to be something else. They needed a martyr, a warning, a headline, and they got it. But Jeanette never got justice. So tonight, we light a candle for Jeanette DePalma, not the Satanic Panic victim, not the Jesus girl, not the rumor or the cautionary tale. Just Jeanette, who may never be properly remembered for who she really was, a teenager, a daughter, a friend who didn't make it home. If you love the show, share it with a friend, and please leave a review, follow, or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Every little bit helps more than you know, and it also helps keep this late night research going. And feel free to message me. I genuinely love hearing your thoughts, your theories, or your requests. This whole podcast has grown because of listeners like you. And stick with me. I promise I'm working on the audio. I have some new equipment on the way, and hopefully by next week, that pesky static will be gone. I mean, if I can figure it out. So, fingers crossed to that. It's probably going to take me a few tries, so maybe the week after. But stick with me. We will get there. Pinky promise. And before I go, shout out to my friend and coworker Jerry, because at this point, I can't write a single episode or even record a single episode without hearing his voice in my head, wondering what he's going to roast me for next. Honestly, it's like a ritual now. WWJS. What will Jerry say? Honestly, I try to guess at this point because it's so frequent. I'm like, oh my God, I just recorded this. What am I going to get roasted for tomorrow at work? I can never figure it out. I swear, I think I got it down, and then it's something else. But it's all in fun. It's hilarious. Promise, I'm not getting bullied. Don't come for Jerry. It's actually fun. So, now you know. WWJS. Next week, we're heading to Gary, Indiana. A case so disturbing it made seasoned officers walk off the job. And a Catholic hospital call in an exorcist. Can you guess the case? New episodes drop every Thursday. And Dark Files, which are basically bonus files, but we're going to call them Dark Files because it's just cute. So yeah, Dark Files drop on Mondays randomly because so do bodies. So, until then, stay radiant, even in the dark.